We have a problem, and that is climate change. It's really affecting us. We've got glaciers melting. We've got the ocean increasing its temperature to where we now have hurricanes more frequently and more violently than we had in the past. Climate change is with us, and we've got to do something about it. It's not just the experts, it's all of us. And so we have to think of this in a broader context than we did before. And really today we should think about adding something to the battle and the confrontation that we have with climate change. And that is, let's bring in a spiritual perspective. We need it, because then more people can get involved than fewer. Let me try to explain that a little. We need harmony. We need harmony in our world. We need harmony in the way in which we approach the whole question of climate change. We have to work together. And so therefore it's important for us to look at what harmony is really. It's resonance. And you know, when we look at it more deeply, resonance occurs on all levels of the universe of being. And therefore we need sort of a reference material to where people can see what it affects them in some way and then be able to reflect upon it. And so therefore we try to bring this together in one place, in a book that we've entitled Resonance Promoting Harmony when Confronting Climate Change. And we will tell you how to access and get to that book later on. But anyway, we try to bring up all aspects of it because the secular world does not answer the question itself. First of all, it can't keep enthusiasm going too long on any one subject, and especially this more difficult and complex one. And so we need God's help, and enthusiasm is the God within. And secondly, we're challenged because there's a lot of people in the world making a lot of money off of keeping the status quo, and that is fossil fuel economy. And so we need to answer that in some way, because we cannot have inequality in the world around us. And this lack of ability to handle that question is also holding us back from answering and confronting climate change itself. The third is we have to consider all the people, not just experts, because experts don't have all the answers. We need all people, and we need all to participate in some way. So believers of the future are those who want to hold our threatened earth together. They want to see that the planet is still going 10, 50, 100 years from now. And so we have to confront this as a people who are more than just those of our own religious belief. And yet at the same time, we have to focus on to those who are believing in a religious aspect, and our own too, in order to create a critical mass of people who can bring about change as agents of change. And so we then we find that harmony is a learned experience. You don't get it automatically, though we all say that when we have a swing and someone is being pushed, they're enjoying it, and it's still the harmony of the way in which the swing is moving is a physical one, and also their own enjoyment is rising to a different level of human participation and resonance with the person who's pushing them. So therefore resonance has many ways of being looked at. And so we look at it from all aspects, and that's what makes this a reference book, because you don't have to spend that much time beyond seeing that there's an introductory area for each of these, and it deserves a book in itself, each one. The first is the physical world itself, the macro and the microcosms, the big part of the hum that continues the resonance of the creation of the world, and also that in which we look into the smallest of materials, and we find that there's resonance within them too. And that, of course, is a very great mystery, and therefore the God of mystery is who we call upon to help us understand it a little more. Secondly, we go into the chemical level, a little higher than the physical one in complexity, and we find out there's resonance hybrids in the very materials that are there. There's a resonance among themselves and within themselves. we then find how we are affected by it, because we create new types of chemicals. And they're not always good. Some of them are polluting. They're overused, or they're bad in themselves for being heavily toxic, and we cannot handle them. And then we move on to the biological level and see the respect we have for life. And life is very precious. That whole universe with all those stars and all of the comets and planets, we know that life is very rare there. And we know that we haven't even found it in another planet yet. But it's out there, most likely. But still, its rareness is something we respect. And so we move on, and there's a resonance involved there, both our way of seeing the world and affecting it, and also resonance within the living planet, animal, and cell itself, resonating within itself and with others. Then we move on to the harmony that we find when we communicate as social beings, animals, but also humans, and how we educate people, or how we form in community organization. All of these are areas that we look at and involves resonance. And the fifth, which we'll give a little more time maybe to, is that of art itself, because art has a creativity to it, but it also has a resonance with the material things around us that we make from a chunk of marble into something that's very beautiful. Or it's a resonance of the artist himself, thinking about it in a very special way. The work of his hands is the head and the heart. It's a trinity of resonance, of activity. And then we listen to people who say the truest measure of genius, that's among the artists, is whether a human being's works are resonating through the centuries. And when we hear that, it means that resonance has part of a commons, an art commons, that's there and involves us all. And of course we could go into this in greater detail, and we do. But at the same time, it just shows the importance that we have for creating, transferring, and working with harmony in all its forms. We can move on to other levels and talk about music, and of course that's better known because people understand harmonizing within music, and we know that it takes effort. Not only effort, but it takes more than one individual to do it, but it's also celebration, and therefore it's something that brings harmony, brings it to not only the people doing it, but also those hearing and participating from a distance. And we can move on to something else on a deeper level, and that is the suffering that is involved in human beings, not lost, very important. And when we have caregivers, they harmonize with the person themselves, and therefore it makes a more positive aspect to what a person is enduring. And there's a compassion shown, a compassion that's needed, like all the elements that we found in the harmonies before, but something that we need very desperately today in order to hasten the day for actual confrontation of this climate change. We have to do it in a compassionate way. We don't yell at those who are deniers. We try to bring them into the fold. And lastly, we talk about the harmony, which is the one that needs most development and why the book is really written. And that is those who are trying to bring about change. Those who are trying to change it on a global level. And you say, but we're not involved. And our answer is, yes, we are. If we look at it from a spiritual standpoint, we all can be involved. And so then we look at it a little more deeply and we say, well, harmony then is a universal experience. And the answer is yes. It's a universal experience because it's the handprint of God. And so we find out that if we look, and that's half the book, at the theology behind the harmony of God, the Holy Spirit at work in the world, the Spirit that moved across the waters of creation, the Spirit that's in our hearts and makes us into a family. Not only a human family, not only a body called church, but also a harmony with us being part of the very family of God. And so community is an aspect, and divine community is the deepest aspect. Now that's hard to discuss fully because it hasn't been developed fully, but it's there. And when we begin to sense it, it helps us grow. And it energizes us and inspires us to continue the work that we have. Some scientists today are despairing that we can really make a change. They say we were supposed to hold to 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius rise in temperature of the world, of the planet, and we can still keep things in bounds, and now they say it's almost certain. At the amount of energy growth that's occurring, especially in Asia and other parts of the developing world, it's almost impossible for us to keep it below 2.5 or even higher levels, which brings on catastrophe. And that's why they despair. But we say in answer, we have to have hope. And that's why we bring a spiritual value to this. Christians believe that the mark of the triune God is in all of creation. And that's what we mean by looking for the resonance, the harmony within things, because they all are part of one. And therefore, each time we look at one aspect and know a little more about it, we change ourselves and our conduct, and we become more respectful of the God who made all of this. And that's what this book is about, too. And so we see that this deeper element of what we're talking about is the power of prayer. We have to be able not only to believe, we have to affirm, first of all, that something is happening here, and the deniers even say that that doesn't exist, and they constantly say it because some are making a fortune on it right now to say that. So we have to overcome the deniers, and more than that, at the second level, we have to overcome those that expect others to do the work because they can't do it themselves. A false humility that says, oh, let them do it and I'm for what they do. No, we have to all participate in some way. And the third level is when a number of people see it as being so great and so powerful that they can't take part and they run off. They have to have allurements, substances that sort of distract them, get them away from things. And these people are the ones that have to be brought in also. So the power of prayer is to overcome this. And then we talk about those who suffer, because many people think suffering tears down the quality of your life, and get rid of it as fast as you can by euthanasia, but some way, getting rid of the people themselves. And our argument is suffering, and the sufferings of Christ, shown and have taken part in that, are the most powerful part of changing the world that we have. And these become primary actors in the change of the world. And so in this deeper level, then, we consider compassion in a spiritual way, in which the compassion of that person with Christ is changing things. And so suffering itself becomes a major part of the prayer and the power of prayer in our life. Positive suffering with and for others. So as we look at all these areas, we're saying then that there's a unanimity that's required. We have to all participate. Some will find ways in which our technology can improve, and we can have better conservation of resources, we have better growth, better interaction among people, agencies, better organization of people. True. But we also need the energy to continue, the enthusiasm to come and get a full answer and a hope for the future. So in conclusion, we're really saying, take up this reference book and take a look at it. See how you fit into it. See what part it is. It's called, again, Resonance, Promoting Harmony when Confronting Climate Change. And you will find it on our earthhealing.info. On our site is how to assess the book, get hold of it, do something with it, and learn from it, and act with us. We need your help. This is Al Fritsch.